It was not.
I just need it on. Thank
Take
you.
it. It's on airplane mode. I'm fine. Hot house and just.
Hey, so been meaning to talk to you about your car's extended warranty. Nope. Hey, I'm wanting to talk to you. No, oh my God, why is this so hard? Normal voice, normal voice. Hey, I've been wanting to, oh, I don't need that word. I never thought I'd be here in this moment. Never thought I'd be here in this moment. So how did we all get here today? No, I'm really asking, how did we all get here today? How about you guys?
You got here by your lovely mother.
I did.
Airplane.
Very original. I got here because of my mom. She didn't drive me here today though. No, that would be weird. She's dead, so. Wow. Dead silence there. My mom, Jesus. No, but I really did get here because of my mom. You know, I can say all the same stuff you hear people say when someone passes away, you know, she was amazing, a wonderful woman, best mom ever, blah, blah, blah. She wasn't just my mom though, she was my best friend. Nice cliche, right? No, but it's true, she raised me on her own and she worked hard to make sure that I had food on my plate and clothes on my back. But I think the biggest gift she gave me was the opportunity to laugh every day. Every day, without fail, she would make me laugh. Whether it was a funny voice, or a terrible joke, or pretending that the hair clippers died halfway through a haircut, leaving me with a mohawk for school picture day. She always had a way to make things light, you know, to break the ice and have fun. I know the show started out quite dark with me talking about my mom being dead and all. Sorry if you thought this was going to be a fun show, but you're here now, so might as well stay. It is only going to get worse though, but don't worry, we'll still have a good time together. Yeah, does anybody else have any past trauma that got them here today? You know, maybe we could just take this next hour to trauma dump on each other and then we'll vote for a winner. Sounds fun, right? Most trauma wins, woo! Since I've already started, I'll go first, alright? Hello everybody, my name is Lennon, Lennon, not Lenin. John, not Vladimir. My mom was a huge fan of the Beatles, of their music, and their last names, apparently. She said too many people already had their first name, so I was either going to be Lennon or McCartney, Mick for short. Not Harrison, not the one last name that is also a first name. Nope, she could have done that, nope. Just Star would have been pretty cool. No, Lennon. I am an only child, and when I was 13 years old, I killed my mom. Anybody else do that? No? It's like I'm gonna win this thing then. I didn't go full Lizzie Borden on my mom or anything. No, that would be whack. Okay, so for those of you that didn't laugh at that very specific and clever joke and don't know who Lizzie Borden is, it's well worth the search. Lizzie Borden killed her parents with an axe, and it was so monumental that there is a nursery rhyme about her. A nursery rhyme. A murderer has a nursery rhyme. Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, gave her father 41. Someone created a fun little ditty about a dual murderer and thought, you know who will like this? Kids! Not no, I did not give my mother 40 whacks with an axe. I killed her with a flying disc. We were playing frisbee one day and I threw it on the roof. On accident. Sort of. I wanted to see if I could throw it over the house. Turns out I couldn't. So my mom had to get up the ladder and climb on the roof to retrieve it. I'm sure you're thinking, oh, she fell off the roof. No, she fell off the ladder that I was holding. I was holding the ladder, but a bee flew near me. Okay, I hate bees. Okay, I really do. They could go back to hell where they're from. I hated them. The first time I got stung when I was 8 years old. Has anyone else ever been stung by a bee? Yeah? I want to exactly describe it as fun. I've been stung 4 times and only recently discovered this isn't a normal occurrence for everyone. See, I was under the impression that getting stung by a bee was just a part of life that you got to get used to. Apparently, bees sting you when they feel threatened. That's right, I'm a threat. To bees. So my mom is lying on the ground, not dead yet, but she did break both her ankles. So I run into the house, I call 911, they bring her to the hospital, she ends up having to have surgery, and after the surgery, they give her painkillers, specifically oxycodone. Now based on that, I'm sure you know how the rest of the story goes, partly because I already told you she dies, partly because the opioid epidemic takes lives far too often. But this is a show about the American healthcare system. Welcome, Lake Cedar, into a black box theater. Welcome, right on stage. Alright. Wow, at least they all came together. Come on in, there's seats right over there. I think one back there. I don't know. Sorry. You missed a lot. Shortly after my mom's surgery, that my grandma passed away. Please let the record show I had nothing to do with her death. Okay, it was natural causes for her. Okay, she was 76 years old, had 0 filter on her mouth or her cigarettes, so her death wasn't a shock. It's still sad, of course. You know, she was in and out of the hospital for the last couple months of life. We were planning on visiting her, but then I threw a frisbee on the roof. I never knew if my mom resented me for ruining the opportunity to go see her mom at the end of her life. Sure she did. She had to have, right? I mean, this was the woman that raised her. I cared for her and challenged her and called her almost every day. You know, for some reason, seeing your mom cry just makes you instantly want to cry yourself. Very rarely did I cry in front of her, or did she cry in front of me either. You know, I'd often hear her through the walls, but in front of me she was always strong. And I think we have this idea that our moms are so strong and superior, which is true. And so it always catches us off guard to see them experience such sadness, such defeat. You know, something we're led to believe is a weakness, but it's just being human. And shortly after my grandmother's death, my mom began abusing the painkillers. She was slowly becoming distant, becoming an entirely different person. You know, she would look at me and she would say, "It's okay, it's okay." And I believed her. Then again, I was 13 years old and she was the only person I trusted, so why wouldn't I believe her? You know, whenever I would get a scrape or burn, she'd kiss it and she'd say, "It's okay, it's okay." The only difference was that when I was 13, and she told me, "It's okay, it's okay." It was more for herself. She was trying to convince herself that she was okay. It was a Wednesday, September 3rd. I just started my freshman year of high school the week before. I slept past my alarm a bit, which was a common occurrence. My mom would often have to wake me up and I'd have to run to school, which was just a few blocks away, eating at a granola bar for breakfast anyway. So on this Wednesday, I wake up, realize school starts in 5 minutes, so I throw on some clothes, grab my shoes, grab my backpack and a piece of gum since I didn't have time to brush my teeth. Gross, I know. Run out of my room, I see she's asleep on the couch, so I go over, kiss her on the forehead. "I love you." And I ran out of the house. Now that day, after school, they were having auditions for the school play. I was never an actor, but theater seemed fun. And part of class requirements was to audition for a show. So I go into the audition in front of the teacher, Miss Soder, and the stage manager, Sarah No H. Roberts. She made sure to tell everyone about that H. Guess the same as me clarifying I was named after the best Beatle and not a Marxist dictator responsible for political repression and mass murder. Very important to let people know that for some reason. Anyway, that was my first time performing in front of anyone but my mom. You know, her and I, we would have dance parties in the living room, which would turn into absurd dance battles that I always won, of course. My go-to killer move was what I called the frog legs. No, this is a tease. I'm not going to show you the frog legs today. It is a terrible dance move, if you could even call it that. It is so bad, but the laughter that ensued after I did the frog legs was euphoric. I mean, having those dance parties, I felt free. It made me fall in love with performing. So I really wanted to be cast in the school show, and I was so nervous for the audition that I had to read off the paper. And I read so quick that I was finished with the 1 minute monologue in about 13 seconds. But for some reason, after that terrible audition, Miss Soder still passed me in the ensemble, which I figured was better than the ensemble, so maybe the monologue wasn't as bad as I thought. So after the audition, I walked home, I opened up the front door, and you know when you can just tell something is wrong? So I call out for my mom, I go into the kitchen, I turn the corner, there she was. The one person I loved in this world. My best friend, my mom. Lying on the ground, breathless. I run over to our neighbor's house, I banged on the door until they answered, I made them call 911. They went over to my house and I stayed out theirs. I couldn't move. I didn't know what to do, as if there's a normal thing to do in that situation. I never knew how much I needed my mother's hug until I couldn't get one. You know something special about those hugs. I strongly believe that mother's hug is the best hug you could ever get. And it wasn't until I heard the sirens coming that it all started hitting. I was never going to get that hug again. There was nothing I could do about it. You know, it was all out of my control, and all I could do was what? Hope? At that point, no amount of hope was going to bring my mom home. So what's the point of hope? I never thought I would be here with you in this moment. In this moment with you. With anyone. Especially a guy. In high school, I started to get bullied. Not about my mom being dead, no, that would be insane. But about being gay, which yes, is also insane. It started after I was in a school play, which actually turned out to be quite fun. You know, who knew theater was fun? This is fun? Right? I'm pretty sure my mom always knew I was gay. You know, I didn't come out for another 5 years, but I feel like moms always know a lot more than we give them credit for. Looking back, I wasn't really hiding it either. I mean, I was obsessed with baking Taylor Swift and dance parties. Not that any of those things are symbolic of being gay, but if you like all three, chances are going to be pretty high that you're gay. All of those things were normal to me though. You know, my mom was never weird about me liking them, so I never had a reason to believe that I was different. And if I'm being completely honest, I didn't even know what being gay really meant. I mean, based on what I saw on TV, being gay, I mean, you were the funny best friend to the lead actress. You know, I knew I was different compared to other guys in my class, more feminine, all my friends were girls. But again, it wasn't weird to me. It all seemed normal. Not until I heard my classmates hurl the words gay and faggot at me in such a derogatory way that I began to think, oh, being gay is a negative thing. That's not something I want to be. That being gay meant people were going to hate me. Imagine that. 13 years old, dad out of the picture, mom dead, living with my aunt and uncle. And you start believing that who you are as a person is shameful. There's no one there to really tell you otherwise. Told you I'm gonna win this trauma down. You know, people often ask me the first time I knew I was gay. I never really know how to answer that because it wasn't until I started to get bullied that I began to question my sexuality. You know, everything that seemed so normal to me was being attacked by people I didn't even know. So it forced me to reevaluate things. You know, I guess I knew I was gay dating back to probably middle or elementary school. It wasn't until high school that I began to associate myself with being gay. That I began to feel different. I began to hate myself. I shut down. Felt like a zombie just cruising through life, wondering when and if it all ends. One day at school, Miss Sutter dismissed us, and as I was leaving class, she said, "Keep your chin up." Okay. Those 4 simple words changed my life. I don't even know if it was what she said, but rather knowing someone out there was looking out for me. You know, someone I didn't know very well cared about me. A month or so later, auditions came up for the school musical, West Side Story. Now, although I could sort of dance, I sure as heck cannot sing, but I auditioned because I needed an escape. And plus, there are 4 roles that didn't require singing, so I figured I had a good chance of one of those. Now, for the audition, we were asked to bring in sheet music and sing 16 bars or whatever of a song. I don't even know what that means. So I'm bringing sheet music, or so I thought. Oh no, it was sheet music, but apparently different instruments require different sheet music. Right before the audition, my classmate looks at my paper. That's not sheet music. Well, I hate to break it to you, but yours isn't sheet music either. It's not for the piano. What do you mean it's not for the piano? It's sheet music. It's not meant to be played on the piano. This was all news to me. I got so upset, I crumpled up my sheet music, threw it in the trash, was ready to walk out, and Miss Soder came in. Lennon! I didn't know what to do. I grabbed the sheet music from the trash because I wanted to show I came prepared, however wrong that preparation was. I walk into the audition, I hand it to the accompanist. Is this toilet paper? Sorry, I crumpled it up because I realized it's not sheet music for the piano. I didn't know people like to make sheet music more complicated than it already is. Yeah, I can't play this. Then Miss Soder jumped in. It's okay, we'll figure it out. And I lost it. I broke down right there. I uncontrollably saw in front of these 2 ladies, one of which only knows me as a kid that brings in toilet paper to an audition and expects her to play it. But it was the first time in months I thought I might be okay. I don't know why, but I trusted Miss Soder. You know, she saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself, and she cast me as a social worker without a real audition. Or were the tears fake and it was a real audition? No, they were very real. I was very sad. You know, I have a weird relationship with sadness. I don't think any of us have a healthy relationship with sadness, but I also have to joke about it. You know, I fear that if I don't laugh about it, then I'll end up like my mom. You know, as much as I want to see her again, I'm not ready for that. You know, there's still more I want to accomplish. Guess there's always more though, so when do we know it's enough? You know, maybe those that die are the only ones that know that answer. I never thought I would be here in this moment with you, with anyone, especially a guy. But I'm thankful. But you've made my life so much better. And I'm thankful every day that our paths crossed. Miss Soder became my mentor, not just in theater though. You know, she didn't have any kids of her own, but she treated all of her students as if they were her family. I began to have lunch in her classroom every day. Yes, I was one of those kids. But she invited me because she knew I was scared of the cafeteria. Not like it was because of the bullies, okay? I wasn't like scared of hairnets or something. And I have Miss Soder to credit for helping me out of the darkest place I've been. You know, whenever she told me, it's okay. I saw my mom in her, and I didn't feel so alone. You know, her classroom, the theater, it became my safe space. And I think gay men, we often find ourselves in the theater because we desperately need that escape. We need that space to safely feel our emotions, you know, to be a version of ourselves that isn't criticized, that isn't judged. And to do it in an environment with others that share in your experience. You know, I ended up performing in former shows throughout high school. I found my community, it became home to me. It was the most fun I had in a while. But it was just that, fun. You know, I didn't have the passion to pursue the acting dream like some other kids did. And I wanted to make a difference in the world while honoring my mom. You know, theater, it was safe for me, but it didn't challenge me the way I thought I needed to be challenged. So I decided to pivot and studied to be an addiction medicine physician. Miss Soder, she was only supportive of this move because she knew it was my way of helping my mom. You know, I always think there's something I could have done to help her, something that would mean that my mom is here today. Which I guess would mean none of us would be here today. And don't get me wrong, I'm having fun, I am, but rather my mom not be dead, you know? So yeah, I studied to help people that are struggling with substance abuse. So she would visit often, not as a patient or anything, which is at this point, I was able to call her by her real name, Diana. That felt weird and still does, so she is forever Miss Soder to me. You know, she'd take me and my roommate out to dinner at least once a month to make sure that we had a decent meal. She'd make me cookies for every holiday. Every holiday. Today, everyone's favorite holiday, say it with me, Labor Day! And what do Labor Day cookies look like? Cookies that say Labor Day, nothing else, that's it. I know it was just an excuse for her to come visit me, and I loved her for it. I would actually circle all the holidays on my calendar so I know when I'd see Miss Soder again, and when my next decent meal would be, of course. One time she took me out for Elephant Appreciation Day, which is September 22nd, who was inquiring. My roommate Peter, he was studying for an exam, so it was just Miss Soder and I. It was the usual gossip session at Chili's. You know, I'd tell her about all the kids I went to school with. She'd fill me in on all the teacher drama. She was starting to play pitball every day after school, but her elbow was now hurting. I was eating 4 packs of ramen every day after school, but my stomach was now hurting. Very similar ailments. And then she caught me off guard. She must have seen my faded smile, neon me out lighting at this Chili's. Are you happy? And the only other time she asked me that question was after I told her I was gay. It was the summer before I went off to college. I was over at her house helping plant some marigolds. We were enjoying some ice cold Arnold Palmer's. God, that's such a mouthful to say. Arnold Palmer. Arnie Keys. We were enjoying some ice cold Arnie Keys, and she was telling me about her nephew that just came out to the family. Oh, I'm just so proud of him. This is all I've ever wanted for him, and he must feel so relieved. Going on and on. I never really know how people feel about me being gay. I mean, it doesn't bother me as much anymore because I'm happy and confident with who I am. But when I was younger, I assumed everyone would be negative about it because that's all I saw. I didn't hear people talk positively about the gay community. You know, we were always the butt of a joke in a movie, in real life. And so I assumed I would be cast out and left alone if I came out. I didn't want to be alone. Not again. So when Miss Soder was telling me the story about her nephew coming out, my heart began racing. You know, for the first time, I felt this urge to speak this secret of mine to someone else, while at the same time admitting it to myself. So I told her, Miss Soder, please, you know, you can call me Diana. Miss Soder, I also maybe don't like girls. And then I just feel her hand on my back. It's okay, it's okay. Are you happy? Yeah. Yeah. It took a while for me to admit that to myself, because I used to think that me being gay would prove that the bullies were right and they would win. I knew I was gay, but I didn't want to lose. Miss Soder, she looked at me and realized that me being gay already makes me winner. I was obsessed with baking, Taylor Swift, and dance parties, and now theater. Plus, my birthday is in June, so I was literally born during Pride Month. I was destined to be a winner. I never thought I would be here in this moment with you, and with anyone, especially a guy. But you made my life so much better. I'm thankful every day that our paths crossed. I don't know why I'm lucky enough to have you in my life, but here you are, and now I'm just the boy standing in front of the boy. No, that's not it. Well, I'm lucky enough to have you in my life. Here you are, and I want to change anything. Here you are, and I want to change anything. I want to change anything. Except the subject back to Chili's. Miss Soder and myself. At that Chili's. Second happiest place on earth. Are you happy? Well, of course, we're at Chili's and we just ordered queso. I'm making my mom proud by helping others with addiction. Why wouldn't I be happy? Okay. Are you having fun? Duh! Chili's! It's med school, it's not supposed to be fun. Has anyone here ever been to med school? Yeah, it's not fun. No? And then she asked me the question again. You know, when I was a student in her class, she always challenged me to dig a little deeper with the characters, and she would do that by repeating a question. It was a polite way of her saying, that was a bullshit response, try again. And it forced me to take a step back and really consider the question. So we're in this Chili's, yay. Are you having fun? No. And then the chips and queso came and we never discussed that again. A few weeks later, on a Monday, I was getting ready to go to dinner with Miss Soder. No holiday this time. She was in town because her elbow wasn't getting better now, her whole arm was tingling, so she made a doctor's appointment. So I'm waiting for her to pick me up, and then I get a call from our roommate Peter. He was doing his clinical studies in oncology at the hospital. So I pick up, and the silence on the other end frightened me right away. You know, I could tell that he was fighting through tears. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. What are you talking about? You need to come down to the hospital. I'm waiting for Miss Soder to pick me up. I know. It's Diana. Apparently, the doctor had concerns for her arm and decided to do an MRI where they discovered cancer. Just all over. Chest, stomach, everywhere. On her way out of that appointment, she ran into Peter in the hall and they were talking for a bit. And then she just collapsed. Right in front of her. He performed CPR for 13 minutes before they called a time of death at 6:15 p.m. Heart attack. because cancer wasn't enough. I didn't eat for 3 days. I felt sick to my stomach. You know, my biggest fear had come true again. I was alone. I was lost. I didn't know who to turn to. I ended up taking the rest of the semester off because I couldn't focus in school. And Peter did too. I mean, the guilt destroyed him. Even though we both know there's nothing he could have done. In fact, doing 13 minutes of non-stop resuscitation was impressive to me. And I'm forever grateful that he tried so hard. Peter's actually now a cardiologist in New York. Moved back to be closer with his family. I actually just got married last year and is expecting a baby girl. Yeah. He called me and was like, I want to name her Diana. That's very sweet, but you should choose a name from the century. And comment was quote unquote rude. And so her name will be Diana Claire. Beautiful name. When I left school, I moved back in with my aunt and uncle. Guess it was good they hadn't died because then where would I have gone? At this point, they had moved out of the city to a nice small town near the river my mom used to take me to as a kid. It's actually at that river that I got stung by a bee for the first time and my hatred began. I was 8 years old and my mom wanted to go to the river for the day. We wouldn't go often, so it always felt special every time we went. So we're walking from the car, and I was wearing flip-flops. And as I went to go take a step, a bee flew right under my foot and stung me. Terrible way to get stung. It was also on the arch of my foot, so it didn't crush the bee, it just flew away right after. I've hated bees ever since, and I haven't worn flip-flops ever since, and quite frankly, no one should be wearing flip-flops, and by no one, I mean grown men. Put it away, you don't need to see your toes split apart, or your toes at all. Good, sir. So I screamed as if I just saw a grown man wearing flip-flops. My mom drops the chairs, runs back to me, and I couldn't speak. I was just crying and pointing to my foot. Somehow, I expected my mom to understand I stepped on a bee simply by me going. Eventually, I was able to say, bee, bee. To be? To be? Not to be. That's the question. Whether it be nobler in the mind to suffer the stings and arrows of outrageous insects, or let my mother carry me down to the river because I'm a dramatic 8-year-old child that now can't walk on vine foot. So my mom carries me down to the river. She finds a nice rock in the water for me to sit and soak my foot in. And we just sat there for hours listening to the river, making each other laugh. In the area around us, we searched for small flat rocks to skip across the water. At one point, my mom went to go for a rock and she fell back into the water. She looked like Charlie Brown trying to kick a football. Oh my god, I swear I haven't laughed that hard in so long. And then she started laughing because I was laughing so hard, which made me laugh even more. And it was like that for what felt like an eternity. You know, in the best way possible. Nothing else mattered in that moment. January was approaching, so it was almost time for me to go back to school. But the words that Miss Soder kept saying to me on that cozy night, Chili's, not this time, it's okay. They kept ringing in my head. Are you having fun? Are you having fun? And it dawned on me that the last time I was having fun, I was on stage performing. You know, I was going to medical school as a way to honor my mom, and I thought it's what she would have wanted for me, but I wasn't having fun. You know, when I was applying for colleges, Miss Soder encouraged me, follow your gut, which was to help others. Theater will always be there for you, if you ever wanted to help yourself. I think she somehow always knew I'd find myself back here. I don't know what you call it when you pivot back to your original path. I guess I boomeranged back to theater. back to my safe space. I dropped out of med school, began taking acting classes and writing plays. Theater became my outlet. You know, any frustration, sadness, joy, anything, I could express it in writing. It became the way I could talk about my mom and about Miss Soder and honor them. You know, I might not save lives the way I could have as an addiction physician, but I'm still doing this for my mom. I'm having fun doing it. I think she'd be proud of that. I never thought I would be here in this moment with you, with anyone, especially died. But you made my life so much better. I'm thankful every day that our paths cross. You know, I don't know why I'm lucky enough to have you in my life, but here you are. I don't want to change anything. I've never felt love quite like this before. I'm the best version of myself when I'm with you. I'm with you. Isn't that Avril Lavigne song? I'm the best version of myself when I'm with you. Period. Miss Soder's family asked me to say something at her funeral. Now I'm not going to read you what I wrote because I didn't write anything. I didn't say anything at my mom's funeral, and I didn't say anything at Miss Soder's. I don't mind speaking in front of other people, but often when I do, I'm playing someone else. You know, there's this barrier between a version of me and the real me. At the funeral, I would have had to be the real me, and I don't want to show others that side of me. I only have 2 regrets. 1, not telling my mom how much she meant to me, and 2, not telling Miss Soder how much she meant to me. And I view those as regrets because I know I had the chance to when they were alive, and I know how easy it would have been to just say thank you. Thank you, Mom, for making sure I had a smile on my face every day, for loving me unconditionally, for never giving up on me. Some people say that she gave up on me that Wednesday morning of September 3rd, but I refuse to think that way. She fought hard and lost the battle, but she didn't give up. Throughout a million lifetimes, I would choose you to be my mom every time. Thank you for being my mom. And thank you, Miss Soder. You saw this shy, broken freshman who was alone, trying to find something to hold on to, and you introduced him to theater, and to kindness, and to a love that he was missing. She was the reason I never even considered taking the same path as my mom. You know, her energy, her spirit, her love for the theater and her students quite literally saved my life. She became the second mother to me. I owe my life to those 2 women, and I just wish I could have told them that when they were here. They deserved to know. I mean, sure, they had an idea, but that's not the same as me telling them when I had the chance. So at Miss Soder's funeral, I meet her nephew. Noah New's story inspired me to come out. His name is Bobby. He's got dark, wavy hair that falls just right on his forehead. A smile that can best be described as perfect. And he's tall, 6'1". Ooh, smile, hair, and tall? Yes. Now we had never met before, so I was surprised when he came up to me. Lennon, right? Yeah. Bobby. Ah, you're the famous Bobby. And you're the famous Lennon my aunt always talked about. Miss Soder kept saying that we ought to meet, but that Bobby would have to make the first move because she knew I was too timid to. It was hard for him to make the first move because he lived a few states away. I'm convinced Miss Soder died so that Bobby and I can meet. The ultimate matchmaker move. A little excessive, but it worked. Before Bobby flew home the next day, he took me to Sturgill's Diner for breakfast. I love a good diner, I do. The atmosphere, the milkshakes, the little extra in the tin that somehow tastes better. My mom loved a diner coffee mug, those thick, plain ceramic mugs that don't hold much coffee and the handle that is big enough for a single finger to fit through. But she loved them, she drank her coffee out of one every day. The Sturgill's Diner, it was always a place of joy with my mom, when I had a hard time reliving those memories. And I didn't know we were going to Sturgill's. Bobby just picked me up and said, "We're going to breakfast!" So when we pulled up to the diner, I couldn't not go in. You know, that diner, it reminded me that everything wasn't the same anymore. That I was never going to sit in a booth across from my mom and laugh as we flick sugar packets to little finger field goals. Or try and keep a straight face while my mom ordered food, something like a stack of flapjacks for the young lad, eh? When I went back into the house after they took her body away, I went into the kitchen and on the ground next to where she had been was one of those boring old diner coffee mugs. Now there's a little coffee spilled out and it was cracked but not completely broken. So I go over there and I pick it up as carefully as I could, not wanting this memory of my mom to literally shatter in my hands. I put it on the counter, and at this point, the sun was setting, starting to come through the kitchen window. And so you could see all the cracks on the mug and the light trying to push through. And it was this golden light. It was beautiful. You know, something so fragile and broken, but so strong and resilient. But of course, I can explain to Bobby that Sturgill's Diner and coffee mugs make me sad now. Not on a first date, that'd be too much of a trauma dump. So we go in, and I ordered an orange juice, and he got a coffee. Just my luck. When the waitress brought a drink, someone accidentally bumped her from behind, and she dropped his coffee. My orange juice was fine, thankfully. And when the coffee mug fell on the floor and didn't shatter into a million pieces, I couldn't help but laugh. You know, I've been trying to understand death lately, which I know seems like a waste of time because no one really knows what happens when you die, and that is fascinating to me. I mean, death is one of life's greatest mysteries, and unlike the disappearance of Amelia Earhart, or why men don't text you back, or if Stevie Wonder is actually blind, we all eventually get to know the answer to the mystery of what happens when you die. And I think when people die, they don't really die. I mean, yes, they die, but they live on through those that love them. You know, I know my mom is always sending me messages or signs that she's here. And same with Miss Soder. You know, sometimes when I'm scrolling on Instagram, I'll come across an ad for the triple dipper at Chili's and think of her. I'm kind of excited to die and drop little symbolic messages to my friends. I was like, bam, stung by a bee. They're allergic to bees, bam, anaphylactic shock. Just means I get to see that friend soon. You know, it's kind of interesting how we associate different things to those that have passed. And the beauty of those messages or signs or whatever they are, is that they probably happen more often than we think, but we only notice them when we need it. You know, when I need a laugh, when I need a smile, when I need a moment of hope, my mom lets me know I'm not going through anything alone. So at that moment, Sturgill's Diner, when the durable coffee mug didn't shatter on the floor, I felt my mom's presence. You know, to me, it was my mom saying, "Hi, it's okay. It's okay to move on. It's okay to laugh." That's exactly what Bobby and I did for over 3 hours that day at the diner. You know, the day before we were crying at Miss Soder's funeral, And now we were crying again, but tears of joy this time. When we first got to the diner, Bobby set an alarm for when he needed to leave for his flight. I didn't realize this, but after all the chaos with the spilled coffee, he turns the alarm off. He tells me, seeing your smile and hearing your laughter in that moment, I didn't care if I missed my flight, because it just meant spending more time with you. And he did miss his flight, but it was worth it. I mean, I say as the one that didn't have to pay for a new flight. But he says it was worth it too, though. A great first date. I never thought I would be here in this moment with you. I mean, with anyone. Especially a guy, but you've made my life so much better. And I'm thankful every day that our paths crossed. I don't know why I'm lucky enough to have you in my life, but here you are. I wouldn't change anything. I've never felt love quite like this before. I'm the best version of myself when I'm with you. I love you more than I could say with just words, so. I love you. It became a very hard thing for me to say. After the diner date, Bobby and I kept in touch. We would call each other often. You know, the distance, it made things difficult, but every time we got to see each other, it was as if no time passed at all. So about 4 months in, I was visiting him for Labor Day. Yes, I made cookies. He took me to a local park where we had a nice picnic in the sun. He made a little charcuterie board, brought some boxed wine. It was very romantic. When the sun was setting, he took my hands and looked at me and said, I've been wanting to say this. And my first thought was, oh God, he's gonna tell me he's dying now. This picnic was just a ruse to make the news land softer. Instead, he looked at me. I love you. And some other stuff that I don't remember because I blacked out. You know, I never had someone in a romantic situation say I love you to me before. And while I was having strong feelings for Bobby, I had a hard time saying it back. And not because of him, but because the two people in my life that I've said I love you to are no longer here. I was scared to say I love you to people because in my mind, it was only a matter of time before that person was taken away from me. Like my words were deadly. I didn't want to lose Bobby. I couldn't lose Bobby. And I've never been so comfortable with someone, so myself. I loved who I was with Bobby. I loved being me. You know, in the past, dating and life in general, it had been hard because there was this constant voice in the back of my mind that made me aware of being gay. Made me aware that I was on a date with a guy and that some people might be judging us and I might be the victim of a hate crime. And I thought that negative voice was just a part of life that I got to get used to, like being stung by a bee, because that negative voice was always there in the back of my mind every time I stepped out of the house. Until Bobby. Bobby silenced that voice in my head. I mean, he was someone that I wanted to be seen in public with. Someone that I wanted to hold hands with and not pull away just because a macho straight man, or really any man, was walking by. He took away any shame I felt for myself. And I knew I loved him, but I didn't want to lose him. So after that weekend, he dropped me off at the airport. And after I grabbed my bag and gave him a hug, started walking away, I said, I'll see you soon, I love you. Both of us did a double take. I was shocked at how easily it flowed off my tongue. And he was shocked you chose this moment to say it. To be fair, I didn't choose that moment. It just happened. But it felt right. Felt good. You know, and I meant it. As uncertain as love can be, I was certain I was in love with Bobby. So, because you make everything okay, I want to spend every possible day with you. Bobby, will you taketh my hand? Bobby, can I put a ring on it? Bobby, will you marry me? Jesus, he better say yes. For a while there, I really did believe that I killed my mom. Bet you forgot I did that. But I blame myself a lot, because if I didn't throw the ladder, or if I didn't throw the frisbee on the roof, she wouldn't have fallen off the ladder, and wouldn't have made the surgery, and wouldn't have gotten addicted to painkillers. All these different ifs, if this, if that. I know I didn't actually kill my mom, as there were a lot of factors in play, but it's hard not to make the connection. Maybe that day at the river, if I didn't step on a bee, I wouldn't be so scared of them, and wouldn't have freaked out and knocked the ladder over. I don't know. I don't know. I will never know. It's easy to hang on to the what ifs, but they never give you answers. It wasn't until I met Bobby that I began to look at things with a different perspective. Because my mom died, I became close with Miss Soder. And because I became close with Miss Soder, I stayed in school and did theater and came out. And because Miss Soder died, I met Bobby. And because I met Bobby, I no longer have to be a version of myself. I can be the real me. I am the happiest I've ever been. I choose to be grateful for all the moments, all the people that brought me here, that brought you all here. But what always put a smile on my face through all of this tragedy, this picture of my mom being reunited with her mom, and all the fun I know they're having on the other side. I know my grandma was excited to have someone play cards with again. She loves playing gin rummy with the side of rummy on the rocks. I also like to think that my mom and Miss Soder got to me, share stories about me, about the different parts of my life the other didn't get to see. People like your son were the reason I wanted to be a teacher in the first place. It brought me so much joy watching him find himself in the theater. Thank you for saying that. I know he loved performing. Did he ever show you the frog legs? Whew. Terrible dance move. Oh, I know, it's so silly, but so him. Thank you. Thank you for taking care of him when I couldn't. You'd be very proud of who he became. I know. I was always proud. And then my grandma, yeah, he was a good kid. You guys want to play cards or what? I'm kneeling. It is kind of remarkable to reflect on your past and realize how every moment you've ever lived, every person you've interacted with has led you here today. And how even the slightest change can put your life on a different path. Maybe something as small as a bee. Sure, there's a world in which me meeting Bobby could have still happened without all the tragedy. That would have been nice, but I can't control how any of it played out. I can only change my perspective. This is all part of the beauty of life. Obviously we should try and live in the present moment as much as possible, but it is quite nice every once in a while to look back, see how everything lined up, and appreciate every person who made this all possible. So who wants to trauma dump next? Yeah, oh, sorry, out of time. I gotta go catch a plane.
You up next? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're not. Absolutely. No, I didn't. Happy New Year. Good to see you. Thank you, Bill. Great.
Yeah.
That's fine. Hi. Did you know anything?
I had it.
You had it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Lots of time.
Michael got it from the sun. I'm so confused.
Oh.
I mean, to make us laugh, to make us smile, like.
I don't know if you turn this off.
Whose phone is
I
that? Is that
can't tell.
Bose?
It's Bose.
I can't tell either.
I can't tell.
I'm gonna make.
It was a good show.
Thank you.